When Queensland couple Brendan and Sarah Ovens first announced their plans to sell up everything, buy a boat and set sail on an indefinite adventure with their 2 kids, they were met with stunned disbelief from friends and family. So many people were just looking at us like we were crazy. They would be saying, "Are you seriously going to sell your house and do this?" Brendan says. There was, Brendan admits, a bit of a wobbly moment when it came time to put their signatures down on the sale contract for their house. Read more. Electricity bills to jump by 35%. Power company boss warns we had this wave of emotion or anxiety that just overcame both of us, he says. We looked at each other and went, "Holy shit, this is just insane." But underpinning all of this was an irrevocable thirst for change. We just got to a point where we felt like we were missing out, Brendan, a former airline pilot who has also spent time in the military, says. We weren't spending much time with our kids. Society dictated to us that you have to have the mortgage and the nice cars. After struggling for years to buy a big, beautiful house in Redcliffe overlooking the water, Brendan says they realized they were no happier than when they were broke. I think we were honestly more stressed and almost miserable, but we had everything that society said we should have, he says. It was just so hard. You had to keep it up. It was exhausting. Read more. The real numbers of inflation hitting Aussies. The couple, along with their son Brody, 13, and daughter Charlize, 11, first tested the waters and their skills by sailing up the Queensland coast in a small monohull. In January 2021, they took the big plunge, buying a luxury 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom catamaran, mortgage-free thanks to the sale of their home. Once we settled into the boat and we started sailing and moving, honestly it's been the best decision we've ever made, Brendan says. Turtles, humpbacks and the green flash. After spending a few months in Scarborough Marina, the family set sail north, traveling up the Queensland coast, past Lizard Island and out to the ribbon reefs in the Coral Sea. For the past 3 months, they've been cruising around the Raja Ampat Islands in northern Indonesia. Along the way they'd seen some jaw-dropping sights. We've seen turtles mating and enormous humpbacks, Brendan says. The odd thing about humpbacks is they'll actually come up to have a look at you. You can see their eye literally looking into your soul. We've been out in the Coral Sea in the middle of a low-pressure system where there is no wind and the ocean becomes a mirror. You can see every single star in the sky reflected on the water. Brendan says he always thought the green flash, an optical illusion featured in the Pirates of the Caribbean movie franchise, was just a fairy tale, until he witnessed it while on the water at sunset in real life. High highs and very low lows. As idyllic as it sounds, however, life aboard a boat isn't always smooth sailing, Brendan says. This is one of the big problems with YouTube and Instagram. You sort of get the picture that it's all beer and Skittles, you're just snorkeling on these beautiful reefs all day. It's not the case at all. This is probably one of the more challenging lifestyles we've ever had a crack at, and that's saying a lot considering I am ex-military. Despite skilling up as much as possible before setting sail, the weather had provided some intense challenges, Brendan says. We've had some really terrifying moments, particularly at the start of this year when the weather was horrendous in Queensland. We spent months and months just trying to escape floods and massive thunderstorms and huge seas. It's not always sunbathing on a beautiful beach. We've learned pretty quickly that in sailing it's incredibly high highs and very low lows. Aside from the weather, another scary moment for the family came after departing for Indonesia when his son Brody was bitten by a stowaway snake from Australia, Brendan says. We were in the middle of the ocean, 24 hours out from Australia and 30 hours or so south of Indonesia. Brody went to the toilet and we just heard this terrifying scream and I ran down and he was standing up on his toilet. He had actually been bitten by the snake twice on the leg. Brendan caught the snake and applied first aid, but with no one answering their distress call, it was an anxious 24 hours before the snake was identified as a non-venomous Stady Gray. The practical stuff. While the Ovens family were able to buy their boat mortgage-free, they've also taken many steps to make sure they will be able to afford to live aboard for many years to come. Wife Sarah still works remotely with her job in construction tendering, ensuring the family has some income, while also being in charge of home-schooling the kids. The family's biggest bills come from fuel and groceries. Strong winds help keep their fuel bill relatively low in Australia, but these costs would rise to about $2,000 to $4,000 a year in Indonesia, Brendan says. Every few months, the family does a big grocery shop. This was costing thousands of dollars in Australia. When you add the rising cost of fuel, it just wasn't sustainable for us, Brendan says. Here in Indonesia, our typical grocery shop will be a couple of $100s, if that. The catamaran is so well equipped, with solar power, its own diesel generator and desalination plant, the family are able to live completely off-grid. We've got a washing machine, which is just the same sort of washing machine you have in your house, Brendan said. The gray water goes straight out into the ocean. It's not really a problem. All the detergents that we use are eco-friendly. The forward bathrooms have big black water tanks for sewerage. The legal requirement is 2 miles offshore, but we wait until we're 20 miles out in the ocean, and that's when you let it go out there. Family life on the high season. The opposite side of Australia, the Willems are another family that have traded the suburbs for a life on the water. The Willems have spent 6 years living on a boat and sailing up and down the coast of Western Australia. Sherry and Paul Willem's 3 children were aged 4, 9 and 12 when they first set sail in their 18-m-long monohull. Our youngest daughter, Ciel, can't remember having a home on land. Her only memories are based on pictures, Sherry says. Sherry says it was always a dream of her and her husband's to set sail and live at sea one day. We actually got married at a yacht club and it sort of planted a seed. We'd always say we'd like to try sailing, she says. Then I read a book on a holiday about a couple who took a 1-year sabbatical from their city office life to sail in the Caribbean and Bahamas. That grew the seed from there. Like the Ovenses, Sherry and her family sold up everything to buy their boat without a mortgage. Sherry, who is a bookkeeper, says she at first had reservations about whether this was a financially sound idea. I said to my husband, how can we buy a depreciating asset? But then I realized that the cost of the boat maintenance and the depreciation on our boat is less than the interest we were paying on a mortgage. As long as we save some of the money that we would be paying off our mortgage, we're not going to come out worse off. We're going to come out about the same as long as we're diligently saving and not spending everything we've got. While the couple spent years saving for their boat, a big fancy vessel was still out of reach, Sherry says. We're normal people with normal jobs. We went with a 58-foot 18-meter, Bruce Roberts. It's a well-known cruising vessel that's about 26 years old now, so most of the depreciation has already happened. Being able to work remotely on the boat had been the key to making it work for them, Sherry says. Sherry works part-time on the boat as a bookkeeper, while her husband Paul also does some remote work as a software engineer. The family's biggest costs are insurance and boat maintenance, followed by food and activities. As a rule of thumb, at least 10% of the boat's value should be set aside for maintenance costs, Sherry says. Most families living in a similar way on board a boat could expect to spend around $30,000 to $50,000 a year, she estimates. But making sure their live-aboard lifestyle was financially viable wasn't the steepest learning curve the family had to face. Starting out with no sailing knowledge meant Sherry and her family had to learn everything from scratch, which was why the family had spent so long sailing up and down the west coast, Sherry says. The family's ultimate goal, which they have plans to embark on soon, is to circumnavigate the globe. We've built our skills set up and are now comfortable that we could cross an ocean and circumnavigate, but it's taken us a long time to get to that stage. We've had to learn everything to do with boat maintenance, from 12-volt electrics to diesel mechanics and fiberglassing. Anything that could break on the boat, we need to be able to fix it. Cruising the humpback highway, the liveaboard lifestyle had offered incredible experiences her family would never forget, Sherry says. One such moment came for Sherry when she was sailing in Shark Bay, near Monkey Mia off Western Australia's mid-coast, and came across an enormous pod of humpback whales. I was hand-steering around humpback after humpback after humpback. They were in groups of 2 or 3. They were just breaching everywhere and my mouth was on the floor, Sherry says. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. I was thinking, everyone is on their way to work and I am having to steer around breaching whales. What is going on? This is amazing. More families choosing life at sea. With the number of families choosing to live a life on the high seas increasing, so too are the networks available. Sherry says her family is connected to an international online community of about 7,000 sailing families and a group of 700 families in Australia, both of which provide much-needed social interaction for kids and parents alike. We all spot each other on a shared map and can connect in different ports, she says. One thing my kids have learned, and we have learned, is to make our time spent in locations and our relationships really count. So we actually do have friends now made from all over the world. Homeschooling her 3 children of different ages, which she does through distance education, was one of the biggest challenges Shed faced over the years, Sherry says. Some people find it really easy, and some people find it really challenging, and I think it's really important to say honestly, that it is my least favorite part of being off-grid. But one advantage of learning at sea was the opportunity to experience topics in a much more hands-on way, she says. Instead of learning about shipwrecks, our kids can see them with their own eyes. We got to sail past the sunken Batavia, which was pretty incredible. The best part is no morning traffic, the kids working when they want to, and all of us waking up when we want to. There is so much flexibility in the day. All those hours that you're not commuting to and from work, or even to school events, they are really precious hours you can get back and reinvest in your children. Retiring to a floating home, it's not just cruising in the ocean that is becoming a popular lifestyle choice. When Susie Penley, 72, and her husband Les, 77, were planning their retirement in South Australia, they realized a houseboat on the River Murray would provide a pleasant lifestyle at an affordable price. We'd always had boat holidays in the past, so we liked that sort of relaxation, Susie says. My husband also grew up in the country and I think we both realized that retiring in the city probably wasn't what we wanted to do. The couple sold their home and bought their 1981 houseboat almost 12 years ago, taking advantage of a drought at the time to get a cheap deal. They also bought a berth at Manham Waters, giving them a safe and secure place to permanently dock, alongside a tight-knit community of other houseboaters living aboard. We love the lifestyle, Susie says. We're surrounded by wetlands and we have direct access to the river. We've got the bird life, ducks and all the things you'd expect to have in the wetland. It's like living in a national park, except on water. It's very, very peaceful. The serenity is quite amazing. There's just no noise unless it's the lapping of the water when you're going to sleep at night. The couple's 2-bedroom houseboat has all the modern conveniences you would expect in a home. We have a full kitchen and bathroom with a shower, Susie says. The beauty of our boat is that we've also got a proper toilet. A lot of people have marine toilets. We also have a dryer and washing machine that sit inside the bathroom. With carpets on the floor and pictures hanging on the walls, Susie says people are often surprised by how similar their boat is to a home on land. It's just like a unit really, but on water, she says. Contact reporter Emily McPherson at emcpherson@9com.